Base in the Viewport by Robert Thurston. From BattleTech, 25 Years of Art and Fiction. Read by Shrapnel.
Marshall. Kerensky Cluster, Clan Space. The 19th of October, 3069.
Screaming from the intense pain, Horse stumbled forward, the smoke from the battle nearly choking him and giving a strange, erratic rhythm to the sounds bursting from his parched throat. Fire radiated from his arm, where a projectile had torn a long, jagged gash in his bicep, and where his hand pressed futilely against the middle of the long gash to try and staunch the flowing blood. More blood from a light forehead wound had seeped down into his eyes, blurring his vision. On this vast battlefield, there had to be some place, a haven, a shelter, where he could just plop down and rest, either to deal with the wound or close his eyes and let fate stop the screams and drain the remaining life from him. Horrendous, racking coughs exploded in his chest, bending his body at the waist and making him fall into the lap of a dead Clan Jade Falcon elemental, propped up against a large, purple-tinged rock, clearly a victim of the battle. Scrambling to his feet, Horse stared at his face reflected in the elemental suit's viewport visor below the elaborate metal Jade Falcon head. He was caught short by the pained look on his face. It was the face of a warrior in anguish, even though he had stopped screaming. Mouth twisted, eyes squeezed nearly shut, hair colour distorted by the tones of the battle behind him, where fire clouds still swirled over the field. Pain might explain the look, yet it was pain he had endured easily in the past. His ravaged body had weakened, he guessed. He calmed his face muscles, the expression in the viewport relaxed, and struggled to look more normal, whatever normal was for a grizzled Mechwarrior like Horse. Below the viewport, the ornately designed marks of camouflage looked like small shadows dancing across the metal. They were ghost-like, especially combined with the Jade Falcon eyes, but not as ghostly as the reflection of his own face. The Jade Falcon eyes seemed to stare at him in piercing disapproval, as if saying, "What are you doing alive, Ayers? Why are you still alive? It's a dishonor to still be alive." The Jade Falcon eyes appeared to shift from side to side. Their glare was frightening and a bit sinister. Horse had a notion this decorative Jade Falcon could kill him. Big joke. No matter how much he tried, what risks he took, how hard he fought, he could somehow not wind up dead. It was definitely shameful to still be on the battlefield where he was supposed to die, still breathing, still trying to shake the abnormal feeling that he must fight to preserve his life. Horse stood and attempted to stretch away the subsidiary pain so he could concentrate on his arm wound. He would not have received the injury if he hadn't removed the heavy armor given to him before the battle. It had been too cumbersome. Horse had thought he was still fleet and agile, even for his advanced age. At his feet, he saw a severed arm. Still in elemental power armor, a pool of blood lay between it and the suit. Horse knelt down by the dead warrior. Checking his reflection in the viewport, he saw the face of an ancient warrior. He'd forgotten the age in the face, age most clan warriors would be ashamed of. He recalled Commander Joanna cursing her own lines, saying that they displayed her many failures to be killed in battle. She went deeper than that. She said the age in her face merely proclaimed the fact that she had not won a blood name in any of her innumerable tries to emerge as the victor in the rounds of combat that qualified a warrior for a blood name. She had been in more melees and individual battle mech clashes than a cluster of clan warriors, she said, and still she lived. "I curse every breath I take," she had once said in one of her bitter moods. And somewhere, Joanna was still cursing and battling. For Horse, the issue was different. Even though he was freeborn, age was a curse for him too, and he hated seeing it on his face. Beyond the age were the smears of battle on his face, The cuts and dried lines of blood, the bruises discoloured by the viewport's opaque darkness. He stared down at the dead elemental. If he could get the man out, the armour could be the haven he's been searching for. But his arm throbbed with pain, seeing torn cloth in the elemental uniform, apparently caused by the severing of the arm. Horse tore off a usable hunk. Using the dexterity gained from operating a BattleMech for years, he managed to wrap the cloth around his upper arm. Some blood seeped out along the edges of the cloth, but at least he had slowed the blood loss. It would not do for long, but if he got inside the armour, he would be able to deal with it. Now he had to get the dead body out. Overcoming his pain, he pulled at the corpse. At first it wouldn't budge. Getting his breath under control, he took one more deep breath and tugged at the heavy form, able to move it up a bit by using all of his remaining strength. As he recalled, death of its inhabitants stopped the operation of the suit's systems, but he still had to pry the body free of them. It took a while, but the more he worked at it, the easier it became. Soon, he was spreading the warrior as neatly as he could beside his combat outfit. The dead man's face looked calm, impassive. In Horse's mind, he tried to see this warrior alive, vital. The man looked a bit like an elemental Horse had known. What was his name? Selima? That was it. He'd been one of the heroes of Tukid, making the crossing of a bridge possible through his sheer combat skills. The act had been heroic enough to justify a few lines in the Remembrance, the clan book that combined history with an epic sense of honour and glory. Horse even had a few lines in it. He didn't remember why. His life had been so many battles, so many acts of combat, so many victories that they'd all blended into one another. Even the current altercation, he didn't remember anyone telling him what it was about. Maybe a genetic materials contest. Maybe Clan Jade Falcon and some other clans settling an argument. Maybe an invasion of another part of the clan homeworlds. They were all one. What, after all, did he even need to know about it? He was now in the last stage of his life as a warrior. As Joanna had indicated that day, warriors disgracefully grown old were used as cannon fodder in battles. A few fighters with outmoded, probably ineffective weapons put on the front lines to draw fire and delay battles. It was an honourable role, but for a veteran warrior like Horse, a demeaning one. He'd not had to do it. He could have been decommissioned and sent back home. But for him, that was a bigger disgrace. He had to die in combat. It was important to him. All he needed to do now was get back to the battle and continue slaughtering until he was slaughtered himself. Even the honourable demise had no meaning to him anymore. He was no Joanna, maybe because he was freeborn. Anyway, what was the point at this moment? He had to get inside this elemental armour. Gingerly, feeling pain in 1,000 parts of his body, he manoeuvred himself into the elemental combat suit. As he settled into it, he experienced almost immediate relief, even though he knew the suit had not started dispensing its medicines and salves. As soon as he thought that, the medical features of the suit kicked in. The gelatinous substance known as Harshal began to staunch his flowing blood. The painless massage it seemed to give as it worked was soothing. The suit's medpack injected him with proper medicines, and he thought he could feel the healing materials travel through his blood. He could not, of course, but the lessening of pain seemed to give the medicines a movement all their own. He closed his eyes, knowing the curative process would be slow. Again, the face in the viewport visor, his own face, appeared in his mind. How many years of existence did that face display? Too many, he knew. But he also knew that he had given up keeping track of their passing years long ago. He had to stretch upwards to look out the viewport. Thin tracks of blood had run down the viewport, making the smoke and fire of the combat outside, with the mysteriously moving mechs, just shadows that appeared and disappeared in a battle that seemed projected onto a surface, a recording rather than the real mechs fighting their life and death battles. He suddenly recalled that the first time he had seen Aiden Pride was through a viewport. They had both been cadets then, from different basic training units. They had not known each other, which was no surprise, since Aiden was Trueborn and Horse Freeborn. Horse was in one of those Freeborn units that, if it lasted, could qualify its cadets as Mechwarriors, though mostly the job of the Freeborn cadets was to serve as opponents in the Mechwarrior training of Trueborns. Normally, Trueborns and Freeborns did not like each other. Trueborns found the method of creating a Freeborn through a male and female's coupling repulsive. Even more grotesque for them was the birth process itself. While most Freeborns supported their society, some, while envious of the more elite positions Trueborns had in the clan hierarchy, despised the genetic engineering that caused the sometimes uncomfortable social conditions among Trueborns and Freeborns. In the training exercise where Horse and Aiden had confronted each other, Aiden had been inside a legless mech shell with most of its equipment removed. Weapons used in the exercise were powered down, as it was too early in their training for either to be trusted with weapons that could kill. Nevertheless, Horse, knowing he was just a pawn in the game, had vowed to harm any Trueborn serving as his enemy in the mock battle. Armed with a barely charged satchel bomb, he'd climbed onto the mech and looked through the mech's transparent viewport at his enemy. Aiden's face seemed startled, much like what Horse had recently seen of himself in the elemental viewport. Horse had swung to the side and quickly attached the bomb. Jumping down, he figured he would be giving his Trueborn foe a good jolt. But Aiden had quickly countered, scrambling out of the shell, grabbing the satchel bomb and hurling it away. It almost immediately exploded, a small burst of smoke and flame that seemed more like a pop than an explosion. Horse could not recall the rest of their battle well. He had started rocking the mech shell, which was light enough to fall, but not before his enemy had leaped on him, slamming him to the ground. Horse had tried to stab Aiden with an illegal weapon, a sort of knife he had fashioned from a piece of waste metal, but the other cadet had won the day. From that point on, Horse had not been able to shake the memory of how it had been so ignominiously defeated by his Trueborn upstart. When the two met again, the conditions were so strange that Horse hadn't really recognised Aiden right away. Aiden, now disgraced in the Trueborn ranks, had been posing as a Freeborn, a strategy arranged by a training commander who had not wanted to waste his combat talents. Horse eventually saw through the disguise, and soon the two were comrades, warriors who trusted each other and who came quickly to aid each other in dozens of mech combats. Not just mech combats, but in fights and barroom brawls. Aiden Pride, restored to his Trueborn blood name status, had been killed while performing an array of heroic deeds at the 2K battle. Warriors were supposed to be praised for dying heroically, and Horse honoured him for it. But he also missed the living man. For a moment, Aiden's face took the place of his own in the viewport. No pain in this face, though. There was a half smile, the only happy look that Aiden ever allowed himself. Usually after drinking a few stiff fusionaries, the typical drink of a Jade Falcon warrior. Horse and Aiden had shared, it seemed, hundreds of rounds of fusionaries, but it could not be that much. There had not been that much downtime, that much opportunity to indulge. Warriors did not indulge. Somewhere, there must have been a rule that decreed that, but Aiden and he were not typical warriors. They were fierce battlers, to be sure, brilliant battlemech pilots, yes! But for both of them, there were quirks of personality that made other warriors wary of them. That set them apart from clan unity. He recalled Aiden starting with a kind of drunken seriousness in his eyes and declaring, "Horse, We might as well both be freeborns. We are...
For a while we were, you know. Your freeborn days.
Do not remind me of that shameful period.
Right, you know, your shameful period, as you call it, is my life. You are drunk.
I usually am when I say stupid things. Aidan had looked sad then. Clan warriors tried not to show sadness or regret, but sometimes even they loosened up for a moment. Usually under the influence of a few Fusioneers. Anyway, Aidan had been right. For all of its demeaning status, it was better for Aidan to pretend to be freeborn than not to fulfill the need inside himself to fight for honour and glory and the clan, a battle mech under his control. The medpack was working well now. The Harshal had sealed Horse's wounds, and he needed only for his blood to restore itself with the help of the medicine from the suit. Then he would be strong enough to return to battle. He stretched his neck again to look out the viewport. The smoke had thickened. Vague figures and silhouettes raced by outside. There was such chaos here. That was what battle was, he supposed. Order to chaos to order. Battlemechs entered the battle in some kind of formation, were split apart by attack, until the battlefield became what was outside now, a free-for-all array of mechs and warriors grouped into pockets of combat, until the fighting was over and order was restored. In his early days, Horse had read extensively from actual books kept in what was called a Brian cache, where they were preserved for reasons lost in clan history. Some of the books had discussed concepts of order and balance as the antidote to the chaos of life. He did not remember much about what he had read, but he knew it affected his thinking from time to time. Infected his thinking might be the better phrase. Well, he had to re-enter that chaos soon, restore the order of his own existence. A figure emerged from the chaos, as if materializing from the smoke. It was a monster of a man, tall like an elemental, but not one. More muscular than Horse. Uglier than the ugliest Jade Falcon warrior. Jauntily carrying a laser rifle, he ranged from left to right, swirled around suddenly as if threatened, except there was no one there. He was a Mechwarrior. He had probably been downed, his mech destroyed, and he now roamed the battlefield looking for a replacement. From an insignia on the man's uniform, Horse could tell he was the enemy. Horse did not even recognize the symbology of the insignia. What clan did he belong to? He took a couple of steps towards where Horse lay in the elemental suit. Horse still felt weak. He would have difficulty getting out of his hiding place to confront this enemy. Although he raged to scramble out and attack, Horse knew it was not time, and he lay still. He could almost hear Aidan, brilliant strategist that he was, urging caution. The man disappeared briefly into the smoke, then reappeared to the right and closer to where Horse lay. Almost strolling, he approached the suit. He came upon the fallen elemental corpse, so carefully arranged by Horse, and stared at it. He kicked its side with an expression of ugly pleasure on his face. Horse wanted to squeeze out of the elemental suit and charge the man, avenge this insult, but caution prevailed again. The warrior's first kick had been light, but the next was harder. He stepped back as if measuring his next move. Then he slammed the side of the corpse with a kick that almost made him fall. Spinning around somewhat gracefully for a large man, the warrior fired a quick burst into the dead elemental's chest, then spat in the elemental's face. Furious at the welter of dishonor that he'd watched, Horse started to get out the suit, but weakness overcame him. He recognized that the medicine from the medpack had not finished its work, and proper strategy called for him to stay still. Reaching down, the enemy picked up the elemental corpse and, swinging, flung it away with contempt. Horse shut his eyes, unable to bear the insults, even though another part of his brain realized that in the heat of battle he might have done the same thing. Not the spitting, though. He'd never dishonoured the corpse of an enemy in that way. Horse opened his eyes. The monster had come to the suit and was now staring down at it. His head was so large and so broad that his face nearly filled the viewport. The fury was still in the face at first, then suddenly he relaxed, his expression changing to curiosity. He probably had no knowledge of the elemental outfit. With his face relaxed, Horse realised that the ugliness in it had come from his own imagination. He was no uglier than most warriors, no uglier than Horse himself. The look had come from the intensity of battle. Horse recalled some book from the Brian Cache that had been about war, about one battle after another. For some reason he recalled the rage of one of the warriors in the story. A hero who had revenged the death of his friend, sought out his killer on the battlefield, defeated him, then virtually destroyed the corpse in subsequent events Horse could not now recall. Now his own enemy stared down at the elemental, seemed actually to stare down at Horse. Horse held his body still, angry at himself for his caution. Well, doses of caution had got him this far, and in a few moments the medicine would have worked and he would be able to return to combat. Horse had always fought for the big moment, the killing moment. He would not have made so many kills, done so much other damage, because of any but the most calculated recklessness. Aiden had taught him that. "Choose your moment, Horse," he had said, and Horse seemed to hear his voice telling him that now. The face in the viewport came closer, as if trying to peer inside. Seeing nothing of interest, he pulled himself up to his full height. From Horse's perspective, he'd looked like a tall building, his head reaching into the clouds, although there were no clouds, only the smoke of battle. Then he raised his leg high. His boot looked like a mech foot coming down, large and broad. Horse could not help but slide downward in the suit as the foot came crashing into the already well-damaged helmet. The sound of impact was like a bomb striking, followed by the sheer cracking of metal. Something struck Horse's cheek. From the pain it caused, he could tell the wound was deep, and there was no more medpack, no more Harshal to staunch or cure it. Reacting as the warrior he was, Horse wriggled out of the suit and sprang up, ready to fight the monster. No weapons, still physically weak, blood streaming from the gash on his face, but ready to kill. But the enemy, the monster as he'd come to think of the man, had already turned and was running back to the smoke. He had not stayed to examine the damage, had not discovered Horse in the wreckage, had unintentionally denied Horse his revenge. Horse relaxed. There was no point in chasing the man now. Even out of the elemental suit, the medpack medicines were returning his strength to him. He would find the man somewhere in the battle, and kill him, and after killing him, spit on his corpse. But now he had to plan his next moves. He had to find a weapon somewhere. First, though, he had to find the body of the fallen elemental the monster had flung away. A few feet away, the corpse lay in a tangled heap, its legs twisted under his body, its head lolling unnaturally, the neck apparently broken by the enemy's abuse. Lugging the body to the elemental suit, he straightened it out, swept the dirt off, and treating the corpse delicately, managed to get it back inside the suit as best he could. It took a while, and Horse frequently thought of the way mothers had dressed children back in the village where he spent his early childhood, carefully squeezing their legs into trousers and arms into sleeves. The last act he performed was placing some of the pieces of the crushed helmet around the body's head. The result was not as honourable as Horse might have wished, but at least it would be protected from further dishonour. Horse turned away from the dead elemental and looked straight into the eyes of another warrior. Where had he come from? How could he have come here without Horse hearing him? The concentration on honouring the elemental must have distracted him. Horse had immediately tensed, then realised that the tired, old face in front of him belonged to another Jade Falcon warrior. an old one like him being used as cannon fodder in the battle. "Still alive and kicking, horse?" the warrior asked.
You know me.
"Everyone knows you, old man. You have inspired us."
I doubt that.
"You are in the remembrance. You will not find my name there."
And what is your name?
"Does not matter."
Freeborn?
"Trueborn. But again, that does not matter now. We are both just shadows in this battle."
Shadows?
"You do not know the term?"
No. Apparently I have missed it.
"No matter. Just warrior lingo for those of us planted in front of the battle. We are shadows to shoot at, something like that." Horse took a step towards the warrior without a name. Something weak in his legs made him stagger a step. "You are hurt?"
A bit. I will be all right.
"That is one thing we may count on, Horse. Rest a bit. You have plenty of time to rejoin the battle. It is a long one."
What is the battle all about?
The man shrugged. "I do not know, but I must return to it now, and you will soon." The man turned and ran away into the smoke. Disappeared. Around him, large shadows suggested battlemechs in action. Smaller shadows suggested, well, shadows as the Jade Falcon warrior had called them. For a long time, Horse sat on the rock the dead elemental had originally been propped up against. Finally, he became disgusted at his inactivity and no longer gave a damn about the state of his strength. He stood, and of course he was strong. He felt better now than he had at the start of this god-forsaken battle. Dampness on his face reminded him of the gash there. Touching it, he could tell it was not a mortal wound. The blood on his face would serve to make him appear more frightening to the enemy. He smeared some of it on his forehead, around his neck. A voice behind him shouted,
Jade Falcon Trashborn!
Turning quickly, he saw a group of the enemy standing behind the rock. Counting quickly, he saw 4 warriors there, all with weapons, all striding menacingly towards him. Good, he thought. Just the odds I need right now. Afterwards, Horse could not have told anyone how he beat those odds. The leader who had called him Trashborn was easy, since he was not ready for Horse's sudden run directly at him. With that one downed, and using a laser pistol he had seized from the fallen warrior's grasp, he had killed 2 of the others, while their own bursts went astray. The last one was a knife wielder, who had used the wrong moves and fell to a chop in the throat, which Horse followed up by stabbing the foe in the neck with his own knife since he'd lost his pistol. It all happened so fast that when Horse surveyed the scene, he could barely remember how he had done it, how he had killed them all, or why he had taken so many risks. It was just war, and a minor battle in this one at that. It blended in immediately with all of his previous battles, whether hand-to-hand or in battle-mech combat. For a moment, he felt like a mech warrior again. Beside him was the ghostly presence of Aiden Pride. Ahead of him was the victory. Collecting the weapons from the 4 attackers, he felt ready to return to the battle. As he looked down at the leader, he saw a faint pulse at the man's throat. He was still alive. Horse could kill him. Instead, he muttered,
Trashborn,
and walked away. As he strode away from the battle scene, he took one more look at the fallen elemental. Satisfied he'd performed the best funerary ritual possible for him and headed towards the battle. Even though his role on this planet, in this battle, might be as cannon fodder, he had a purpose of his own. He would find the monster who had so dishonored the elemental's body and kill him or be killed. No, he would kill him. Shoot a dozen bursts into his body and spit upon his corpse. He felt he would survive this battle, survive to become cannon fodder in another place. Eventually he would die, but not now. After disposing of so many enemies, here and in the past, he felt he might never die. As he disappeared into the drifting smoke, became a shadow himself, He cursed his own survival, but not too hard.
Well, hello everyone, this is Shrapnel saying thank you for listening to this tale of true grit. Thank you to Derek, a big button Patreon over at Battletopia Stories, for helping to pick the story. If you'd like to join Derek on the Battletopia Patreon to support me and guide the stories I make, then hop on over and sign on up. If not, no worries, but please drop a like or comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps massively and makes me warm and fuzzy inside. Right, where to start with this story? I love anything with elementals, especially dead ones, because, well, we hate you clanners, don't we? No, not really. I mean, we love you guys. We spheroids, if we didn't have you to fight, and how would we know who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? I absolutely loved this tale when I read it. I'd never heard of Horse before, so I did some deep diving, and he is old and lucky and apparently unkillable. He's the kind of guy that if he had two people standing either side of him, a sniper would aim for his chest, shoot, and as the bullet's flying through the air, a bird would fly over the top, fart, the bullet would split in two and hit either man on either side. How grizzled is he in this story though? He knows he has to die, he wants to die, but he also knows he can take more enemies with him. So why should he die right now? He's sore, he's hurt, but he has a mission. I feel sorry for that poor bastard that messed with the elemental. He is in for a rough time. Having Horse hunting you, I imagine, is like the Predator on your tail. And it's only going to end one way, isn't it? With you dead. It was lovely to see some real clan culture as well, that's not just mechs ragging on each other or patrols or, grandiose statements. Actual human interactions. The way the elemental was laid out by Horse and put back in his suit. He died a warrior's death, so he deserved dignity and respect. It's not something you often associate with the highborn, high-honour backstabbers that the clans seem to have become now. I'm not very well read on clanners stuff, but most of the stuff I read, they're just like panto villains a lot of the time. Don't send hate mail, I'm learning. I love that Horse didn't just go, "Oh, he was weak, he died. Oh well." He took the time to put him back in the suit, dress the face, repair the helmet a little bit. Are there more examples of this? Because I would love to know. If you have any more examples, please let me know in the comments below, because I will read up on them. That human element to the clans is often lacking, I find, in the short bits that I read. And with that, unfortunately, we're out of time for this tale. But remember, please like, comment, subscribe, and if you want to visit the Patreon, go for it. More tales are coming, and until then, I've been Shrapnel, and stay safe out there, mech jocks.